Perfect. Yo guys, what is up? Max on our Elden Ring video, and today we are doing an updated build guide for my Night Witch build. Now this is going to be the first video in a series of videos for like the current best builds in Elden Ring, at least for the best builds that I've played. I've messed around with a lot of builds. We'll have a Faith build, an INT build, and so many other things. But today I wanted to update you on my INT build, Night Witch. It just kind of trivializes everything. It does ridiculous amounts of damage. It's got a lot of utility. It uses some of the strongest weapons in the game and has some crazy damage mechanics that allow it to just kind of delete bosses. In this video, we're going to go over everything that you need to know, where to acquire the items, and so on and so forth. And the point of this video is to get you prepped and ready so that you can take on the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC when it comes out, get a really strong start, and farm all the weapons and things that you need in that DLC. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get right into it. So I posted this build a long time ago. I think it was like 2 years ago, so you might remember it, but I'm updating it now for this DLC. And this build revolves around the Staff of Loss. Now, the Staff of Loss is a very interesting staff because it boosts invisibility sorceries by 30%, which is one of the largest boosts in the game for like a certain stat. A lot of talismans are like 10%. The Staff of Meteorite, or the Meteorite staff, can boost gravity sorceries by 30%, but you can't actually increase it. The Staff of Loss you can buff up to get ridiculous S in scaling, and you get a 30% damage increase. But what makes the Staff of Loss so crazy is the 30% multiplier stacks multiplicatively if you're using 2 of them. This provides the like single highest damage boost that you can get for like one school in the entire game. And so even though the like invisibility sorceries aren't the most flashy, aren't the coolest looking, we can get them to hit for ridiculous amounts of damage. And the fact that their invisibility sorceries is incredibly powerful because a lot of times enemies won't dodge them. If an enemy has a shield, they won't raise it to block the attack. So you can run around basically unseen, unheard, doing one-shot damage to just about everything. And then when we do our full boss rotation, you can melt bosses in a matter of seconds. This is the strongest build I think I've ever come across in my time playing Elden Ring. And the fact that the Staff of Loss provides such a significant buff to a small subset of spells allows you to really specialize this build, which is part of the reason it's so fun. Now, the other things that we're using besides the Staff of Loss, which, by the way, you're going to want a two-hand. This is a New Game Plus build. If you want to get 2 Staff of Losses, you either need a friend to trade you one or just start a New Game Plus. I will have like the locations of these at the end of the video. But you know, if you don't have 2, you're probably gonna need to cast 1 or 2 more spells to kill an enemy. It's not the end of the world, but if you can get 2, that's where the like damage scaling of this build really starts to ramp. Now, besides the Staff of Loss, we also have the stats to use one of the strongest INT weapons in the game, the Wing of Astel. Now, this has been something that I added to the build as a option for one, if our like mind gets low, we can't cast any more spells. The like charge attack, the charge R2 attack of this costs no mind or FP at all, so you can use it as much as you want. It does tons of damage, and it's like Ash of War, this like gravity attack, does some of the most stagger damage in the game. This does as much stagger as a colossal like greatsword hitting enemies. So you've got a fantastic weapon that staggers bosses really easily. You've got a charge R2 that does range damage, that does tons of damage. And we've got 2 Staff of Losses that we can use to spam out Night Comets, which is the main spell that we're using with this build, to just rain down damage on basically everything. And with this build, we're also going to be incorporating Faith. Now, Faith is something that we're not doing damage with, but we are buffing with. Intelligence doesn't have many buffs in its like School of Magic, besides a spell called Terra Magica. This spell, when we cast it on the floor, and any spells that we cast in it, is going to get a significant damage increase. And we also, if we pop over to a Faith Seal, we're able to buff ourselves with 2 of the strongest damage buffs in the game, Golden Vow and Howl of Shabriri. Howl does increase the damage that you take, so just be careful when you're using it. But this build rains down so much damage that most of the time enemies won't be able to get close to you. But our full kind of damage rotation that we're doing is we're buffing with Golden Vow, with Howl, with Unseen Form. Unseen Form is also pretty crazy. It will make you kind of like semi-invisible, so enemies are less likely to spot you and attack you. And then we're also pairing that with the Black Knife armor. This armor gives us muffled footsteps, so not only are we very quiet, but we also are very hard to see for enemies. And we can do this whole kind of buff rotation and just melt bosses. For your talismans, you want to use Magic Scorpion Charm. This increases your magic attack, but lowers damage negation. I believe it's a 10% buff. The Godfrey's Icon increased the charge attack damage of our Night Comet, which is massive. Graven Mask Talisman boosts our sorceries, and Ritual Sword Talisman gives us another damage increase when our HP is at full. If you're like kind of just running around killing things, you don't need to use Ritual Sword Talisman. Some notable options that you can use that are pretty nice are Radagon's Icon for faster spell casting, Primal Glintstone Blade so that your spells consume less FP. You can throw on Graven School Talisman for like a small 4% damage increase for your sorceries. You could also use something like the Shard of Alexander if you want to buff up your Wing of Astel. And then the other thing that's like kind of an option if you don't have great stats is something like Marika's Sword Seal. This gives you Mind, Intelligence, Faith, and Arcane. And if you're a lower level, this is one of the best things to put on. Also increases your damage taken. This is a bit of a glass cannon build until you get your vigor up, because we're wearing so many things that are increasing the amount of damage that we take, but we're also dishing out a lot of damage. So those are just some options. For your armor, there's a lot of cool armor that you could wear for an int build. I went for style over like function, to be honest. So the set that I'm wearing right now is the Black Hood with the Black Knife armor, the Traveling Maiden gloves, and the Black Knife greaves. They give us this like really cool kind of aesthetic and look that kind of pairs well with the Staff of Loss. But if you're looking for more utility items that you want to wear, you have a few options with this build. First off, the Twin Sage Glintstone Crowd gives you a whopping 6 increased intelligence, which is really gross. If you need stats, that's great. You can wear the Spellblade set for more increase for your like Spellblade stuff. The Preceptor's Big Hat gives Mind, which is nice, and it's not like the worst looking item. I'm just not a huge fan of it. And those are kind of some all-around good options. You also have the Glintstone Crown and the Lusat set, but once again, we're using Night Sorceries, so not really important for us. For your Physick, I'm using the Magic Shrouding Crack tier to boost magic attacks, and the Cerulean Hidden tier to eliminate all FP consumption. You're going to want to drink this right before you go into a boss fight. That way you can spam as many Night Comets as you can without ever losing any of your FP. There are some other options here if you want to like avoid taking some damage on your first point of damage taken, but I like just the ability to spam a lot of high damage attacks, so that's what we're prioritizing there. For your stats, your big priorities are getting your Intelligence to 80 and your Faith to 33. Intelligence at 80 is basically the highest you can get intelligence that you actually get any return on for damage. Faith at 33 allows you to use the Golden Order incantation and also Howl of Shabriri, which are both big damage buffs to our damage. You don't need your Arcane up. I just had my Arcane up 2 points because I was able to just use a Dragon Communion Seal. Your seal doesn't really matter for this build. That's just what I was using. And then some other big notable things that you're going to want to get. Your Dex to 17 is pretty important. That allows you to use and equip the Wing of Astel. Your Vigor at 60 is just really nice to have. The last time I made this build video, my Vigor was at 30 because we were very, very glass cannon-y. But for the DLC, you're definitely going to want that Vigor to 60 because things will hit hard in the DLC. There will be some tough enemies, so the ability to take a few hits is really nice. And then Mind, as high as you can get it. Mind's at 40 right now. Allows you to cast more sorceries, which is really nice. And we've got a little bit of Endurance at 21. The reason Endurance is nice is because when you get an opening on a boss, you can only spam so much before you have to stop if you don't have enough endurance. So getting that to at least 15 is pretty important so that you can cast your sorceries in succession. Mine's at 21. Don't really need more endurance for heavier armor because we're not using it. And then strength at 12 is just kind of like a bare minimum. We're just going to do a quick walkthrough of a buff rotation because it's one of the questions that I get usually asked on these. So I put my spells in the order that we're going to use them. So we start using Golden Vow. You're going to approach whatever boss or outside your boss room you're going to do. Golden Vow first, then our Howl. Unseen Form is kind of optional, but it does sometimes delay the time that it takes for a boss to attack you. So I think I use Unseen Form here. And then after I use Unseen Form, I typically drink my flask. That's going to give us the damage. And then once the actual boss fight starts is when I am going to be using Terra Magica. Usually try to position it so that we can get to a spot where we can stand in it and get that, I believe it's 20% damage increase. There I just made sure it's up, and then here we've got Mog. If you have the space, you're going to want to hold down. The charge attack is going to get buffed by God Freeze, which gives us a massive damage increase, and there you can see as soon as we're getting those charge attacks done, we are just doing tons of damage. This is one of the harder bosses in the game, and he's gone. That is the boss fight. That is the build. The gear for this build, a lot of it you can actually get from Celia, the town of sorcery. If you parkour onto these rooftops, you can get the Staff of Loss. This is their main damage weapon. Then if you light the 3 torches, you can break the seal and then go through the seal. And then on your left here, you can find the Night Comet, which is our main damage sorcery that we're going to be using. Then if you go to the Consecrated Snowfields and head up to the Albanark Rise Tower and go to the top, you're going to get the Graven Mass Talisman, which is what we're using to buff up the potency of our sorceries. One of the nice talismans for this build. Then in the Atlas Plateau, if you go to the Golden Lineage Everjail and kill the boss in there, you can get the Godfrey's icon. I'm pretty sure it was the one. Yep, Godfrey's icon. Next up for the Shabiri's Howl, if you come over to this Frenzied Flame Village outskirts, climb up the tower, kill the people up here, and then open up the chest. You can get the Howl of Shabiri. This is our 25% damage increase. And if you kill these enemies that are riding the wolves in the Consecrated Snowfields, you can get all of the blue-silver armor. It's not guaranteed to get the chest piece, but that is where you get that armor. And lastly, the Terra Magicus. You're going to come to the Crystalline Woods, go through using a Stone Sword key through this little chamber, kill the crystalline enemies. If you've got big stagger damage, they're very easy. Come to the top of the tower and you'll get the Terra Magicus. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I wanted to make these videos mainly just to update you on what's still good and what's still strong in Elden Ring. I know a lot of you probably haven't played Elden Ring in a while, and so these videos are kind of a refresher course. I'm going to have more variety in some of the coming builds. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I wish you the best of luck in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Peace!